Hello and welcome to the program. I am TUYI. When the federal government declared bandits as terrorists barely 2 weeks ago, one would have thought there would be a drastic decline in the rate at which these deadly criminal groups wreak havoc. But on the contrary, they do not seem to be relenting. Barely 2 weeks after the landmark judgment prescribing them, bandits have again attacked travelers in Gidambawa village in Isa local government area of Sokoto State, killing 23 persons, including women and children. Now, should I be calling them bandits or terrorists? Well, Sokoto State Commissioner of Police Kamaldeen Okunla explained that the vehicle in which the victims were traveling caught fire after it came under gunshots by the terrorists. In the process, 23 persons were burned to death, while 6 others who sustained injuries are currently receiving treatment. The incident has been described by some people as a massacre. Reacting to the incident, President Muhammadu Buhari condemned the dastardly act of the terrorists and said the incident clearly shows the evil his administration is confronting requires the support and involvement of all Nigerians. He also assured that the security agencies will continue to give their all to bring to an end the operations of these despicable characters. But how exactly do we put a stop to all of these incessant attacks by bandits and terrorists? Now being joined on the program by Dr. KABIR ADAMU, who is a security consultant and also the CEO of Beacon Security Consulting, a consulting firm based in Abuja. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us on the program. Doc, what exactly is going on? It appears you declare these bandits terrorists, but they're just not shifting ground at all. They are not taking things easy. The attacks are getting brazen almost on a daily basis.
Good afternoon, Adeji, and thank you for highlighting this very worrisome issue. When I heard of this incident, I was taken aback for the simple reason that, first off, we have to remember that 4 state governments in the Northwest, and Northwest mainly, implemented some extraordinary measures that denied free movement, ability to communicate for their residents. And then all of a sudden they withdrew these extraordinary measures. But then the threat factors like banditry, unfortunately, are still happening within the community. So it's very worrisome. It kind of speaks about a situation where the government doesn't seem to be capable of addressing the issue in a manner that Nigerians expect in this manner. And this is a combination of both the federal and state government. Now, the second element that which you spoke about is the declaration of this group as terrorists. Now, when you look at that particular ruling by the Abuja High Court, it mentioned 2 bandit groups, what it called Yembindiga and then the Yandaba.
But it also says other groups, other similar groups as well. So you would think, since it covers other similar groups, then other groups are affected by the ruling as well.
Exactly, but the point I was trying to make is that ruling is just a statement, and it may have tended to the political sort of demand for the declaration, but it would not serve the purpose of a security requirement unless it is translated into our national security processes. And if you recall, the ruling itself called on the government to publish that declaration to gazette that declaration.
Yes, to gazette it.
More or less. And after gazetting it, what I would have expected is the various policy makers within the national security architecture to now raise taskings to the law enforcement agencies to now carry out certain actions. As an example, I would have expected a tasking should go to the Office of the National Security Advisor to now ensure that this particular issue, which is the issue of bandits now, declared as terrorists, should be incorporated into our national counterterrorism strategy, what is called NACTEST. Now, that national counterterrorism strategy provides the various measures with which the government departments can now address this issue of banditry as part of our national counterterrorism strategy. Unfortunately, none of that has been done.
But then let me quickly, sorry to interject, let me quickly ask you this. I mean, you look at the kind of force that has been brought to bear on this, well, whether we call them bandits or terrorists, you look at the kind of force that has been brought to bear on them, not just in recent time, even before that declaration was made, even before the court judgment. Now, with the declaration and designating them as terrorists, what would it change on the ground? Are we saying we're going to see more force than what we had seen all this while?
So, Deji, the point I was making is nothing would change if we do not translate that declaration into strategies and operations. And I am saying that the only way we can translate it into strategies and operation is to incorporate that judgment as part of an existing strategy to counter terrorism. We have that strategy. It's called the National Counterterrorism Strategy. So this new development of bandits now declared as terrorism will have to be incorporated into the National Counterterrorism Strategy. That would now mean we are approaching it holistically, and all the various government departments that are involved in implementing the National Counterterrorism Strategy would now see their rules spelled out as part of that strategy. I'm not aware that we've done that yet, and I'm worried that unless we do that, this court ruling is just going to be a court ruling without any force to it, unfortunately.
Look, we as a country, we've thrown several measures, several initiatives at this problem. I know what the states, for instance, have done, from Zamfara to Katsina to Kaduna, or maybe we shouldn't mention Kaduna, but to other states, especially in the northwest of the country. We know what some of these governors have done in the past. At some point, they even initiated a peace process, amnesty, if you like, for these bandits or terrorists. All of those measures would appear to have failed, if you like, because these guys are still operational. They're still very active. They're still carrying out attacks and all of that. And then the federal government too, at some point, had to step up, and we have an ongoing operation now in the northwest of the country, targeting this bandits or terrorists. Yet these guys are still very active. I mean, this incident of Sokoto is quite so, you know, it's so touching. It's so dastardly. What else do you think we need to do to deal with this, to bring an end to this?
Thank you once again. You know, you indicated that we shouldn't mention Kaduna. I think we should mention Kaduna, even if it's just to learn from what Kaduna has done right and what it has done wrong. The state government in Kaduna has been quite novel in some of the initiatives it's attempted to implement. But what is lacking is, just to answer your question directly, is the inability of both the two levels of government to address the root causes of insecurity in the country. And so that is allowing these bandits the space to operate. So as an example, if we pick these ungoverned spaces that we've been discussing, you and I have discussed that issue
several
extensively.
times.
And till date, there is no clear action to dominate those ungoverned spaces and deny these bandits the ability to operate in those spaces. So unfortunately, because that has not been done, the bandits are still operating in those spaces. Now, I'm not denying the fact that occasionally government carries out operations where you see the military or the police going into these ungoverned spaces, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking of a clear-cut strategy where those forests or ungoverned spaces will be dominated, and by domination, I mean presence of some sort. It mustn't be human presence, it can be technology, where even if it's an ant that is moving in those forests, you are able to know and take action against it. I haven't seen that done yet. Second point is poverty and unemployment. The youth population that provides the pool for recruitment by these groups, unfortunately, are still wallowing in poverty and unemployment. So it's very easy for these groups to induce them. So with that, he's able to speak to these youths who are unemployed and sometimes are wallowing in poverty, and some of them whose values, unfortunately, have been, depraved. Join him for a lot of reasons, sometimes because of the power that he promises them or because of the money that he agrees to give them. And then third point is the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Using TUYI as an example, the information at my disposal suggests that there is no bandit group that has the kind of weaponry that he has at his disposal. Now, what have we done as a country to stop the inflow of that weapon? Not much. It is only now, almost 15 years after ECOWAS had advised its member state to set up a commission on the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Nigeria is the only country that is yet to have that commission. Yes, President Buhari has sent a bill to the National Assembly for the creation of that commission, but as we're talking, that commission is yet to come into force. So the reality is, yes, we're doing a lot, but we're not doing them strategically.
And let me quickly ask you this about Turuji. You know, just as you said, his name has come up several times for the past year or two now. Why is it difficult for our military to go after him?
I wish I was in the military. I would answer that question. Unfortunately,
I can understand, but you know, it's just worrying. You know.
Yeah, but I can tell you from what I know. Meanwhile, just to let you know, we produce a report in my consultancy. We're going to publish our report most likely by tomorrow, and this issue is going to be addressed in that report. So what we're seeing from an intelligence point of view is the absence of intelligence. By intelligence, I mean actionable intelligence. Where, for instance, they're able to identify his movement, they're able to identify his support base, they're able to identify vulnerabilities within his security arrangement and then exploit that vulnerability. Unfortunately, I don't think we're not seeing that in terms of the information that we're getting from within the environment where he operates. Second point is capability. We do have tactical units within our military and other security agencies, but we have not seen those tactical units operating in the manner that tactical units are meant to operate, where they are able to, infiltrate and, inflict precise, damage, as it were, including taking out the leadership of these bandit groups. TUYI is not the only bandit leader, but if we had tactical units that had the capacity and capability, they can go in, take out their leadership, take out their commanders, and then they would have limited their abilities to operate. We haven't seen that yet. So I guess the direct answer to your question is somewhere in between failure of intelligence and then the lack of capability, unfortunately. I know the military would not like to hear this, but I'm basing my response on what has happened. We haven't seen the use of intelligence in a capable manner to deal with this type of precise action, including the use of tactical units. You remember when the American was abducted in the border area between Niger and Sokoto, it was a unit that came in and they carried out a precise operation where they were able to rescue him in a manner that was efficient. So we haven't seen that yet.
And unfortunately, when you talk about actionable intelligence, if it's not coming from the people who are around this individual or at least have information, then it's difficult to see how the military would be able to proceed.
Exactly, and that leads us to that element where we've talked about addressing grievances within the environment where these groups operate. Grievances, unfortunately, leads to distrust between the people and the government. Not too long ago, I did an interview on your show, and after the interview, I got a call from a resident of Zurmi, where I was making the point that the state level and federal government security operations was impacting insecurity in the location. And the man said, no. He said, look, in my village, as an example, an attack would happen. The attackers would remain for hours, according to him, between 2 to sometimes 4 hours. And it's only after the attackers have left that the security agencies would come. And so, as far as it's concerned, that lack of capacity and inability for security agencies to respond to them in times of distress makes it almost impossible for them to believe or trust anything the government says. So that's a huge issue, and the only way we can improve on intelligence is if we address that.
All right. Dr. KABIR ADAMU, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
I will take a short break now, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, it's no secret that Nigeria is facing a very serious vaccine hesitancy problem as people are not turning out in droves to get their COVID-19 vaccination. In the midst of this, a report recently revealed that about 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine donated to Nigeria expired before they were used. Reacting to the report, the Minister of Health, Dr. Asaje Ehanire, admitted that the vaccines which were received as donations through the COVAX and AVAT facilities actually expired. He, however, did not give the exact number of the vaccines that expired. He explained further that the doses were a few months or weeks from expiration before Nigeria received them, leaving the country with limited period to facilitate distribution and usage, adding that their rollout was further delayed by logistical challenges. With this development, Nigeria will become the first West African country to dispose of COVID-19 vaccines without using them, joining its African counterparts like South Sudan and Malawi. Now, with Nigeria dealing with very serious vaccine hesitancy issue, what impact could this latest development have on the uptake of vaccines across the country? Joining me right now to discuss this is Dr. TUYI MEBAWONDU, who is a public health physician. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us on the program. Look, we're dealing with a serious vaccine hesitancy as far as the COVID-19 vaccination program goes. People are not coming out to take the vaccine. As we speak today, we have done just around 4% of the population has been fully vaccinated, which of course is a serious issue. And this is partly as a result of conspiracy theories, fears about the vaccine and all of that. Now that we now have this situation of expired vaccines, I mean, what potential damage do you think it could do to our fight against vaccine hesitancy?
Thank you, Deji. Essentially, we're not just dealing with issue of vaccine hesitancy, vaccine refusal, or vaccine doubt. We're also dealing with serious vaccine shortage. Now, when the vaccines was rolled out first time in March, Nigeria got just about 4 million doses from COVAX facility. Okay. Now, we started the vaccination, as it were. Then another one came in August, and we started the second dose. And right now, we're just about 10.4 million vaccine doses, which is equivalent to about 3% of the population vaccinated. Now you have vaccine. Nigeria government had told us initially that they've structured the distribution of the vaccine perfectly. At least they've done it in March. We ought to have seen an improvement on the process of delivering the vaccine, the process of vaccination. Because when you deliver the vaccine...
Have a serious... Sorry to interject. When you say we have a serious vaccine shortage, well, that does not add up because recently the executive director of the Primary Healthcare Development Agency and the secretary to the government of the Federation, who is the chair of the Presidential Steering Committee, came out to say, look, we have about close to 7 million vaccines. That the problem we have is that there's vaccine hesitancy. People are actually not coming out to take the vaccine, even after the government has rolled out a mass vaccination exercise. And we've actually been to some of these vaccination centers to see things for ourselves. People are actually not coming out.
Okay, tell you what, Nigeria's population is 200 million. We are targeting 40% vaccination, 2 doses, okay? Now, with the 2 doses, that means that you are looking at as much as close to 80 million, 100 million doses of that vaccine that you want to use if you are using 2 dose vaccine. Now, Nigeria had just, let me even take your figure, 7 million. 7 million will just probably enough for Lagos to vaccinate 30% of the population.
So sorry, actually 70 million. That's what they have 70 million. That's what they said. 70 million, not 7 million. So and the question is, even if the 70 million is not enough, the truth is that we have 70 million at the moment, but people are still not coming out to take.
You know what? and I, we knew how government ran the show. Government ran the show by centralizing information, by building mistrust, by actually allowing gaps, social media narratives, to fill in the gap of proper communication and involvement of the stakeholder in the vaccine penetration. During the vaccine ordinance of 1918, when smallpox, and later 1948, when smallpox vaccination was made compulsory, religious leaders were involved, imams were involved, traditional leaders were involved. The thing went down to the population, and they saw the honesty or the intent of the government. Here we are, the palliatives were not given. We are not communicating this vaccine, the importance of the vaccine deeply to the people. Even in some point, they incentivize the vaccination. We just kept quiet and imagine that by sitting in Abuja and ruling out figures, and then for a long time.
In fairness to the authorities, especially the health authorities in this country, I know that they have designed programs and they're actually using traditional rulers and religious leaders and all of that. But beyond this issue of whether the vaccines are enough or not, what I actually want, what I want you to speak to now is the issue of these expired vaccines. You know, before now, some people had expressed fears about the vaccine. Some people, even up till this moment, there were people who were scared to come to take the vaccines. And now they're hearing of some vaccines getting expired, even though the government has come out to say, look, those vaccines were never even sent out in the first place. They were withdrawn. What I want to know is, what potential damage do you think this could do in our fight against this vaccine hesitancy? Is it capable of, you know, putting people away from getting vaccinated altogether?
It will affect us in two fronts. It will affect us in two fronts. The first front is this. People donating the vaccines will be wondering, how on earth are we donating scarce resources to you? You are not paying for it, and you allow it to expire. It shows that your process of delivering the vaccine is faulty.
Let's quickly address that. Would you blame the government? I mean, just as the minister explained, these vaccines had a very short shelf life, and it appears the guys who donated this vaccine knew that the vaccine was close to expiry, and so they sent it down here in a hurry. And unfortunately, you naturally would have logistic challenges and all of that before you're able to distribute these vaccines across the country. Of course, there's no question that for some of the vaccines, they might expire before you're able to use them.
The fact is, if you know that, because again, the logistic management, the whole process is to ensure that, for me, if I have this vaccine, I need about 1, 2, 3 months to be able to push the vaccine to those that will need it. Okay, if I'm having hesitancy, maybe I need another 1 month to convince people and ensure that they get the vaccine. If you as a government cannot see that and tell those people that, yes, we want the vaccine, but we don't want the vaccine that's going to get wasted. Give us a vaccine that has this kind of lifespan, or take it to some other African country or West African country that may need it. So it speaks volume to your preparation in terms of your readiness to ensure that once the vaccine is gotten, you then take it down to the people as soon as possible. At the end of the day, it still has to do with government preparation. I mean, on one side, because you cannot give me the vaccine that's going to expire in 2 weeks, and I know that I cannot deliver them in 2 weeks, and then I'm still taking those vaccines. And then, I mean, it's going to expire, and it will be a bad image. Secondly, the people that are supposed to take the vaccine, even though you see they are doubters, they are hesitant, and they are vaccine refusers. People that are still doubting, should I take it, shouldn't I take it? When they now understand that some vaccines are expired, they will be reticent. They will have to be, reluctant to then say, okay, let me go ahead and take the vaccines. If we have a place that you're having uptake of the vaccine that is stressful, you move the vaccines that are about to expire to the place that you can take them. If not, you deepen your communication to ensure that people get those vaccines. I know, it's a huge logistic challenge, and it's a huge issue of trust at the level of the government and the governed, and it's not going to end easily.
Well, the good thing is that despite the fact that quite a huge number of the vaccines got expired, the government has come out to say, look, that receiving the vaccine alone saved us about millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, because some of the vaccines were actually used before they expired. But Going forward, don't you think there's a moral question on even those who are giving us this vaccine themselves? Because if they had, for instance, given us a vaccine earlier, we probably would not have this problem. So they saw that the vaccine was close to expiring, and then they just pushed them down to Africa. And don't you think, as the government said, that something needs to be done, that we're given the license to start producing this vaccine locally? Because if we were producing the vaccine locally, we obviously would not be having this challenge.
If you remember, the COVAX was essentially WHO, Gavi, Gates Foundation, UNICEF conceptualization to deliver vaccine to us. They have the moral, or the moral, they have the moral burden to ensure that the vaccines they are taken to Africa, where they know that the logistics is challenged, because we don't have experience in adult vaccination. We have a lot of experience in children vaccination, but adults, we don't have a lot of experience in adult vaccination. They should have known and understood the challenge of an African setting where those vaccines are coming to, and be able to actually up their game in that regard. Secondly, it's always shameful that every time Africa will have to carry fan in hand, go cap in hand, begging for everything, from vaccines to this to that, to everything. Africa has to beg for all. Then the critical question is that what lesson have we learned in both 2020, when the country was locked down, when our health system was broken? So, and when all the doctors and health workers are moving away in droves. So, it's a systemic challenge, honestly. Yes, there's an issue from WHO or COVAX related to the vaccine, which is close to expiry. But inside the country, there's a huge systemic challenge that we need to raise the standard and up the game in such a way that, you see, we build a resilient distribution system, a resilient logistics system that can put jobs down the line. If we can do what you call even electoral voting in the smallest part of Nigeria, why should we be able to give vaccine in that tiniest part of Nigeria? Even if we have to use another methodology. If we feel that INEC is going to be useful, let's use them. But we have a resilient system that must be able to help, navigate the logistic challenge in a place like Nigeria. But tell you what, I will put the blame at the level of the government, because you have the mandate to ensure that, one, you get the right thing that have the right exercise date. Secondly, you deliver those things to the people and find a way, to engage them and build trust among your people.
Well, somehow, some people would say in a situation like this, you're like a beggar who hasn't got a choice. But all the same, thank you very much, Dr. MEBAWONDU, for joining us in the program and for sharing your insights with us. Thanks for your time. That's how much we can take on the program this week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.